Be fruitful and multiply, monsters of the earth. What's that all about? Today, as I was carving the Bible, I noticed a very curious verse. God actually blessed the monsters of the world. If God created everything, he obviously also created whatever monsters were present in the world. But in the Bible, it says that he blessed those monsters. In this video, I'm carving Genesis chapter 1, verses 16 to 27. And I will read the passage to you momentarily, but when I saw the word monsters in the passage that I was carving, I decided I needed to look into that word. The word in the original Hebrew is tananim. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't speak Hebrew. And apparently it can be translated in a variety of ways. One of the ways that it was translated was as monsters, but it can also be sea creatures, and it can be translated as whales, which is the way that the King James Version translated it. Whaling had recently become commercial in England when the King James Version was first published in 1611. So each translation is a little bit different, but the word reflects something that is fearsome, something that is mysterious, something that is chaotic. The word tananim is also used, for example, in Exodus, when Moses and Aaron are in front of the Pharaoh of Egypt, trying to get the Israelites released from bondage. Aaron throws down his staff and it turns into a snake or a serpent. In Psalm 74, God is described as crushing the heads of tananim in the water. And in Ezekiel 29, the Pharaoh is called the great dragon, and tananim is used in a metaphorical way, symbolizing arrogance, symbolizing oppression. But in this context of Genesis, it also shows that God not only created these creatures, but was in control of them, so much so that he blessed them. And that's where I found it a little bit surprising, where I thought, what does that mean that God is blessing creatures that are dangerous, creatures that create fear? And not only does he create them and bless them, but along with all the other animals, God says, be fruitful and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply, monsters of the earth. What's that all about? The story seems to imply that these things we find fearsome, out of our control, are not only an intentional part of creation, but essential to its fabric. That without them, all of creation, including ourselves, would somehow be diminished. So, how do we find meaning in that? That blessing seems to suggest that those fears have a place in the world and can be transformed into something meaningful for us. Welcome to Carving the Bible. My name is Francisco, and on this channel I'm carving the Bible, and as I do that, I sometimes see things that I had not noticed before, just because I'm doing it slowly. This channel isn't about Judaism or Christianity. I don't know enough about either one to speak about them with authority. It's more about the Bible itself as a document of a culture, of a people's spiritual journey. So I hope that the themes that emerge will interest those of you who are curious about these kinds of topics. Let me read for you the whole passage that I'm carving today and then focus on the specific verse that mentions the sea monsters. So this is starting with verse 16, Genesis chapter 1. And God made the two great luminaries, the great luminary to rule the day and the lesser luminary to rule the night and the stars. And God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to shed light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate between the light and between the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And it was evening and it was morning, a fourth day. And God said, let the waters swarm a swarming of living creatures, and let fowl fly over the earth across the expanse of the heavens. And God created the great sea monsters, and every living creature that crawls, with which the waters swarmed according to their kind, and every winged fowl according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the fowl multiply upon the earth. And it was evening, and it was morning, a fifth day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kind, cattle and creeping things, and the beasts of the earth according to their kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kind, and the cattle according to their kind, and all the creeping things of the ground according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and they shall rule over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the heaven, and over animals, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping things that creep upon the earth. And God created man in his image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Now I know that the verses that I just read, verses 16 to 27, seem to break in odd places. And that's because I'm just reading to you what I'm carving on this particular tablet. So I reflect on the tablet that I've just carved. But getting back to the Tananim, to the monsters of the world, I think that here is where it gets personal. When we think about these Tananim not as simply monsters of the sea or sea creatures, when we think of them as metaphors for those things that we fear, for those things that we find mysterious and incomprehensible in our lives, for those times that we find struggles that are overwhelming and feel uncontrollable. Those are the kinds of monsters that we find ourselves facing these days. And this passage suggests that not only are those things part of creation, they're also something that's valuable enough to be blessed and to be told, be fruitful and multiply. They are not beyond the care and purpose of creation. In some ways I find that really comforting because it connects us to all those things that we think should not be part of our experience, that should not be part of our world. And we don't understand why they are because we're afraid of them, or we don't understand them. They seem outside of our experience. And I think as humans we try to control everything, and when we find something we can't control, we fear it. But if they're part of creation, if they're part of the experience that is planned for us, then they become a little bit less frightening. There's something that I saw on the news not too long ago that I think exemplifies this idea pretty well. There was a grizzly bear in Teton National Park that was recently killed on one of the roads. It was a mother grizzly bear, number 399, I believe. And this grizzly bear had been in that park for many years and had many litters of cubs, and it was well known to the people who visited the park and the rangers who monitored it. Now, grizzly bears are dangerous animals. They're big, they're strong, they're powerful, they're fast. You don't mess with them. And yet, people grew fond of this particular bear. As part of that park, as part of that experience.
A grizzly bear that was a draw for visitors for decades in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming has died. The female grizzly, known as number 399, was hit by a car last night.
And that park is a little bit of a microcosm in my mind for creation. There's all kinds of wild things there. And when this particular bear was killed, there was a great outcry. People felt a sense of loss. They felt a sense of diminishment, even though that bear was dangerous in the right context. And when I read this passage, I thought about that bear, and it just struck me that it's a great example of these monsters. and how we can come to terms with them and we can appreciate their role in our existence. There is that transformation from fear to awe. And maybe, just maybe, you can think about how you might see them differently. If you knew that they also were blessed and told to be fruitful and multiply. In this passage of Genesis, God created them. God found them good. God blessed them. And God told them to be fruitful and multiply. That is not something I had expected to see in this passage. If you're not familiar with this channel and want to find out more about why I'm carving the Bible, I will put some more information in the description below. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you in the next video.